everyone, what's going on? My name is Stephanie Graham. I'm an artist and filmmaker, and I'm also an extremely curious person. Some will go as far as to say that I am nosy as fuck. The nerve. I started this podcast because I wanted to interview people. I'm not just talking to anyone either. I'm talking to people who are in the thick of what they do. I want to know how they live their life and how they get things done so that I can apply some of their savvy to my own life. I'm sharing this with you so that you too can do the same. We can do it together. We all got to start somewhere, and if you're not looking for practical info, stick around anyway because my guests are fascinating and it's my goal to get to the bottom of their I mean, aren't we all just a little bit curious of what it's like to live someone else's life? And if we do it the same? There are also times when I will feel called to catch up with you one-on-one and let you know about what's going on with me, either in life or with my art practice. You didn't think I'd get the dirt on all these cool people and not let you know what's going on with me, did you? I mean, I'm a Libra. We believe in balance. Listen, I am a big believer that even though we are all different, we can still find ways to relate to each other. It's time to get down to business, so welcome to the noseyAF podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of noseyAF. While I'm on hiatus preparing for the next season of the show, I wanted to share a wonderful bonus conversation with artist and printmaker Jamal Barber. Jamal is from Virginia, but he is currently based in Atlanta, and he is all in the mix with the Atlanta art scene. And I love that because obviously I love talking to artists. I love knowing about what other art worlds are going on, as there are many art worlds. And Jamal actually got into screen printing when he ran up on a screen printing demo. It's sort of a wild story, which I believe we get into. Jamal also has a podcast called Studio Noise, which also interviews artists, and he also was on a reality show. Like, Jamal is the coolest person ever because being on a reality show is a crazy decision, and it's something that when I listen to other interviews about with reality show stars, I'm like, should I do this? Could I do this? I never do. I don't think I could. So that the fact that Jamal did this is wild. So yeah, I really think that this is a fun, lively conversation. Check out Jamal's podcast, Studio Noise, and listen to this conversation. I cannot wait for you to meet him. Here we go. You know, it's so cool to be talking to you because I discovered you through, I think maybe Najee tagged your podcast. This is before you were like officially sponsored. And I was like, what? Another art podcast? Because I am like obsessed with, obviously I'm an artist and I love artists, but I always like when I find out about an artist, I always first go to see if they have any YouTube interviews or podcasts. And when they don't, so I can hear them talk. And when I don't, I get really, really upset about it.
Why do you get so upset, yo?
I just feel like, I'm like, why don't you have at least one interview, please, so I can hear you talk about something, anything, like even like if it's Instagram reel, just some sort of conversation with the artist. Because especially like when I'm in my studio working, I like to have it on as background just to hear conversations, like podcasts anyway. So why not hear someone talk about their art? So when I saw that you were interviewing artists, I'm like, yes, more artists to learn about and hear from.
That's good. That's one of the reasons I do it. I'm the same way where, I don't know, I do a lot of visiting people and like talking to people in the print studio. And so a lot of that is just the conversation I like to have. Like I want to hear some stuff, people talk about stuff. You get a lot of information from artists when they're just being loose. Like, when people in the making stuff, just relax, they get stuff off their mind and you know that you're there with somebody that can understand it. Like it's much easier to open up and really be like honest about like, how much fun you're having like in the studio, or like what's the problem areas, like, what's going on, like what are you trying to think through, like that kind of stuff. So I do that kind of stuff all the time. And so I wanted the podcast to feel like that too, where it's like you're getting a little taste of like what it's like, what I like to talk about when I'm in the studio or what I like to hear. And hopefully people enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully.
Yeah. I know, right? You're always like, is anybody out there? But I enjoy it. So if nobody else is there, I'm there listening.
Oh
So
yeah, because I know I can get real nerdy when I talk about printmaking too. Like I talk about like different ways to mixing colors and what this ink do in particular when you ink it a certain way. Like I get into all the little details. So I find that kind of stuff exciting. So I hope somebody else finds it exciting. Because if not, then it's like just Jamal going off on this print thing again. Like,
I know, right? It's even like your guest is probably like, okay, I'm not into it that much. Like,
exactly. Why does this guy get so excited
yeah.
when I talk about paper? Like, what's wrong with him? But you just learn how to. I don't know. I just be myself, yo. Like I just come up here and just like talk to other people, and I get excited. I show people I'm excited. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not ashamed of it. Like it's been a lot of time as an artist. You don't want to be. Sometimes as a black artist, you don't want to be too artsy because people look at you funny. Like you want to keep your street cred when you're out there. But nah, like I get geeked up, talk about paper and printmaking. Like that's what I do. That's who I am. So ain't no need to apologize for it.
Yeah, I know I probably bother my printer from my own photographs too much because I will hang out. But actually he will because he's also a nerd about it. Like he's probably the only person I could talk to about papers at nauseum. And even then he'll like hit his desk like, okay, I'm going back to it. I'm like, all right, I've been here too long. But I'm just so yeah, so you're a printmaker. I love printmaking. As like I was waiting for you to come on, I just texted my friend who draws and like does murals and he's very talented too. And I was asking him, I was just asking him like if he ever does printmaking because I feel like it could be like a good medium for him. But in Chicago, we have the Chicago Printers Guild. Are you familiar?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen them. I follow them online. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're great. And I've done like some collaborations with them. And I just nerd out on printmaking because I feel like it's a whole other world. Like it's like a whole other world, like in the arts, just like filmmaking too is like there it can because like I feel like printmaking can break off into like different types of printmaking and then
Oh yeah, for
who's
sure.
that
For
print
sure.
being made for. So, how do you like? Can you share about how you got into printmaking? I remember learning from your podcast that it was like from a demo at an art store or something. So, if you could share that, I think it's a good story.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was one of my world famous stories. I tell the story all the time. How I was a failed watercolor artist. Like basically, trying to do painting and stuff like that. And I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but not really. Like, but it's like I know I wanted to make stuff, but I just ain't know what I wanted to make. And so I spent a lot of my time painting, trying to be like other people. And that's the downfall of an artist right there, where you're not like really thinking for yourself and you hold yourself to this kind of standard that is unattainable because you haven't done that much work. Like, and so no, I can't paint like Charlie Palmer because I haven't painted as much as Charlie Palmer. But when you're starting off, that's what you think about. And that's what I thought about. So I was locked into, really famous black painters that I looked and admired and saw. And the admiration was fine, but the way I was approaching it was wrong because I was directly comparing what I was doing to what they were doing. And so spent a lot of time frustrated. I made some stuff, but it wasn't all that great. I may have done like, I don't know, 5 or 6 paintings a year, like basically. And so I went to go pick up some more paint supplies from the art store, and they had a screen printer demo like there. And I don't know, it was something about me seeing how they did the process and how he figured it out and what he ended up with. Like that clicked with me somehow. And so that day I bought all the supplies I needed to do screen prints, the screens, the emulsion, the inks, the squeegees, all of it. I ordered all of it like right away because I'm like, no, I'm gonna try this. Like this might seem like the thing. And so over time I just taught myself screen printing, like, a bunch of books, YouTube videos, a lot of trial and error. And I figured out how to do it right, right in my old townhouse in my shower, in the closet, exposing screens in my little closet with my daughter's Elmo chair. And so it was a mess, but it was fun. And I think that whole process is where I found myself honestly as an artist. And that's why printmaking means so much to me because I was able to really figure out what I wanted to do and like go through the work and process of doing it. And I think a lot of times when I teach, especially, I talk about success a lot. Like you got to do the thing. You got to do it, you got to finish it, and then look at it and see what happened. What did you make? How did it come to be? And so that whole process of all printmaking is process, really. But the whole process of you only draw so much before you have to expose your screen. And when you expose your screen, you can only do so much. Like the screen is exposed, it's over. That part, you have to move on to the next part. Next part is printing it. You can only do so much before with your print before either it works or it doesn't work. And so either you have to go to the next step. So this constant pushing forward is what I needed. And so the process allowed me to not dwell on my head, to follow my instincts, to think a little bit, to, put stuff together and to expect a result quickly. And so it doesn't have to be me sitting around my house, for 2 or 3 weeks painting one arm on a person, what I'm saying, trying to figure out and struggling and feeling bad and all this stuff. Like it don't have to be that. Like it can be a completely different process. And that's what to me, printmaking set me free from my creative boundaries, especially because I didn't know any printmakers. I didn't know any black
Yeah.
printmakers. And so
Yeah.
I had no point of reference. So that allowed me to just make a lot of stuff that I just, whatever I felt had to be the thing, because I'm not copying anybody no more or comparing myself, copying and comparing myself both. And like eventually, like now I know a lot about black printmakers, like the history and like, the ins and outs of it. And so I don't know, I found myself in it like somehow. So I always have a love for printmaking for at least giving me that part in my life.
Yeah, it seems like so as you were talking so print with the screen printing you have to keep moving forward. So like even if you are like, man, I did that wrong, like or I exposed something wrong, you still have to like keep going. Do you ever go through this process frustrated?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
The process is frustrating. It's definitely frustrating because it's always. But the best thing about it is there's a process for you to lean on, right? Is
Okay.
that if your screen didn't come out right, you have to check your process. Did you have the right kind of negative that you're exposing? Is your exposing unit working properly? Like, did you expose it for the right amount of time? Did you rinse it? Did you wash it out with too much pressure? Like you have solutions, and
I
so
see.
you're never lost because there's always a thing that you can do different. So even if you like it and don't expose the screen, you have to re-expose the screen. Like so, but something has to change in how you did it. So to me, you're never really lost. You just kind of have to find what was wrong. And so it's more troubleshooting. But troubleshooting in a technical aspect is different from troubleshooting in a creative aspect. Like if I don't like the image, then that's something different, right? But if my screen is not printing properly, well, I can figure that part out. Like, do I need more pressure? Is my ink inconsistent? Is like, it's all kinds of little things. And it just takes, a lot of experience, a lot of trial and error. Like I said, I messed up a lot of paper for like 6 months just to be able to get it, but I got it, and like, I don't know, there's something about that sense of accomplishment from I got it, I did it. Like, Jamal, like you succeeded in this thing that you've been wanting to do for so long. And I don't know, was the start of my confidence, really.
Wow. That's really cool. Art as confidence builder.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because it's nothing more personal. Well, I take it back. For me, it's nothing more personal. Like I'm making a certain type of artwork when I make artwork, right? Like I'm closing my eyes and I'm seeing like what do I want to talk about today? Like what do I see? And so my artwork is all about me. I think most art that's really great is about the person because that's the unique experience that you can embody. It has to come from somewhere. Like you're not making it up. Like a lot of really commercial driven art it feels commercial. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not the stuff that belongs in the museums. And the stuff that you see in the museum that people resonate with, like that we, put behind the big glass walls and hire security guards for, like that stuff is always personal somehow towards the artist. And so it has to be. And that's for me. Like in order for me to feel good about it and to do it in the first place, it has to be personal.
You know what I was thinking of? Like my first introduction, I think, to screen printing is the guy that makes the family reunion t-shirts.
I love that. I love
And
that.
like thinking about it, I was like, as you're talking, I'm like, I wonder if that guy has like, if he's ever tried to use these practices for, like, does he have his own personal art practice? Does he know Black printmakers? Does he care? Is it just a job? Like, have you ever made a family reunion t-shirt?
No, no, I don't make stuff like that. That's not what makes me gets me going. I would I would die if I had to do that all the time. Even when I used to make my own T-shirts, it never felt like, man, this is what I want to do. Make T-shirts. Yeah, I'm doing it now. I'm living the dream with these T-shirts. Like, nah, I never
Yeah.
felt like that.
Living the dream with these t-shirts. But is it the same process? Do you know?
It's the exact same process.
Wow, just like at
Yep,
a
the same.
faster or over and over again?
Yep, that's all it
Weird.
is. Yep, it's the same way to expose screens, same way to use the squeegee, same all that. It might be industrialized, like I say, they might have machines to do it like 100 times faster than you do, but it's all the same. Same way to make shower curtains. They print, clothes patterns on your fabrics. They print, electronics, like all of it. It's the same process, but it just has a different application.
Yeah. So if the process of screen printing and the like printmaking techniques are always have a process, is your creativity of how you approach, do you have like a process for how you approach the topics of what you're going to be making work about? Do you have a system for that?
Not sort of. Sort of. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if this answer will make sense or not, but I keep it as two. It's allowed me to look at it as two completely separate things, right? The creation is one thing, the production is another thing, right? And then after the production, the selling it is another thing. So it's like three different components. And so I never let anything interfere with the creation part. And the creation part can come from a lot of places. Like I keep a sketchbook and do a lot of research and make a lot of notes and stuff like that. And so a lot of the creative aspects, like actually what am I making, comes from that kind of thing. Just wandering, making notes, doodling, jottling, like, all types of things. What was the last thing I did? How can I do it different? It's that type of stuff. The production aspect, once I have a good idea, then I move into production and I figure out how many layers it's gonna have, how many colors, how am I gonna set it up, like what size is it? Like how's it gonna be printed? Like, all that kind of stuff. When can I print it? And so it's a whole system I think you have to have. And I think everybody's system is a little bit different. And so for me, it's like there's a pure creative aspect and then it's a pure production aspect. And then I try to sell it like after that. And hopefully somewhere along the line, I'm making something that actually can sell. Right. That's always the coin flip for any artist making stuff. You don't know how anybody's going to respond to any of this mess we making. Like it's just it means something to me, but it might not mean nothing to nobody else. But I find that for the most part, if I do make something that really means something to me, it's somebody out there that feels that way, more than likely, you know. And I had to learn how to quickly separate like what my idea of success is for every piece, because the production and selling is one aspect of success, but just me making it is a success, honestly. And a personal success, I might not get no money out of it, but like that, I have to embrace that aspect because it's been a lot of years in the beginning of my career when I first learned, even when I was doing paintings, and when I first learned screen printing, nobody bought that stuff. you know, I tell all my students a lot. Like I spent like at least 2 years making stuff constantly, and nobody bought it. So the buying it, selling it can't be my measure of success at that point. Like, why am I doing it? I would have to stop, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
the making of the work is so personal that I get the adrenaline rush. I get the endorphins from just seeing it come to life. And so that part of it has to be important too.
Yeah, that's really interesting two things. One is that your process reminds me of like making films, like especially in commercial film, like the writers, like I can be like, I'll like be on set and we could be shooting a story that's like in the middle of winter and they'll be like, "Oh, don't the writers know that it's winter time? Like they want us to shoot this stuff." And it's like, well, that's not really their job. Their job is to create the story,
Exactly.
and then when it gets to us, then we figure out how it gets made. And so it's like it's two totally separate things. And then we can go back and say, hey, maybe this building wants like $8 billion for us to film there. So can you rewrite it to be something different? And then they address it then. But your process like equals that to me. So it's like
Oh
I
yeah,
could totally see like how
exactly.
you
It's a lot of that.
see it differently.
They shoot a lot of movies down here in Atlanta, and they do this whole thing where, like, if something's supposed to be in New York, but it costs too much money to shoot in New York, they make Atlanta look like New York. You know what I'm saying? Like they put up the subway signs. They got this whole thing that they do when they roll it out. It's hilarious to see them do it, but like that's the same thing. Like you're like this thing, and you figure out how to do it. And that's the exact same thing.
Yeah, like even I was like working on like a short film myself, and I have a bunch of friends who will make independent films, and then they'll read it and they'll be like, okay, how are you going to shoot this? And they'll say, oh, you can shoot at my sister's house. And I'm like, okay. But like, it might be like smaller. So then I have to go back and like readjust it, So I feel like, yeah, I like that. I think that's an interesting way. And another thing you said is that it seems like you're like always redefining success. Like the definition of success is a living document. Like you ever go like to goals workshops and like the facilitator's like, what's your definition of success? Write
Yeah,
it down.
exactly.
And like it's supposed to just like be that forever. Like that's just it. And then like when you walk away from it, but it's like, no, that has to like that's like always changing, it
Yeah,
seems like.
it is.
Yeah.
It's like relationships. Like
Hmm.
I spend a lot of time like I don't know while I'm making stuff in the studio. I'll just be on YouTube, like just having something in the background. So a lot of like these relationship shows have been popping up, and you speak about relationships like in such a weird way that they act like everything is just supposed to be how it is, and everybody has to accept these rules. Like I'm a man, I do this. You're a woman, you do this, and it's never like that. And your art is never like that because stuff happens. Like you can do all you want to and make your art. If you have a show and nobody buys it, you have to react to it to figure out like either I'm doing something wrong or I'm doing something that I feel is right and I accept the consequences. Like yes, I would much rather at some point make stuff that I love and nobody else wants. I'd rather do that than to be physically laboring over something that somebody else wants and I hate. Like who wants to live like that? And so like you have to constantly adjust. But then once people start actually liking the stuff that you're making, then it's like that's another different feeling. So you have to you're constantly having a conversation with your art. And just like in a relationship, you have to constantly be having a relationship conversation with your partner. And so as an artist, their partner is the practice, like the art practice. You have to be more committed to that than you've been to anything. And so your relationship to it has to change over time. Or else like what are you doing? Like you could just do it for fun and like, the senior citizens that go do watercolors, on the weekends, stuff like that. Like they just get enjoyment from doing the stuff. And that's cool. But that's also a conversation, right? Where you have to say that to yourself, like, this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I like to do it. And if it has no commercial value, that's fine. Or I don't expect it to, or I want it to. Maybe you get to a point where, like me, I got laid off my job and the art had to have a commercial aspect to it. Like I have to rethink my relationship to it because now I want this to be the thing that I do forever. So, it's constant change.
Yeah. How does you go from being laid off to saying, okay, I'm laid off, and instead of going to get another job, say, I'm just gonna go and do art.
Oh man, you know what? Mostly it is. I spent when I had my graphic design job. I worked there for like 7 years, and I spent probably 4 or 5 of those years imagining leaving, leaving a
Ah,
job. like wanting to get like, and always making plans to leave. Like, when if I ever make this much money with my art, I'm gonna leave. And then I make that much money, and then it's still like, well, nah, that ain't enough, or maybe I need to make a little bit more. So, like, so I was in that cycle, and me and my wife we were married at the time, so me and my wife we had that conversation a lot. And so when I got laid off, she was the one that actually told me, well, now you can do your art. And
Oh, okay, that's great.
in that moment, I realized that she believed in my art more than I did. Like I didn't believe that I could do it. I didn't really feel like, and now when I look back at it, I can say I would have never left that job. Never. Yeah, I would have just stayed there because it's such an uncertain thing. You have to put so much trust in the thing that you do. And so another part about being an artist and being on these podcasts is being honest. I got to be honest with y'all and tell y'all I didn't believe in my art. Everybody's been everybody's been there. Everybody's seen it. Everybody has failed with something that they do, and they attach that level of failure to that activity constantly. So with your art, it's the same thing. Like if I go out and do a show, I didn't sell anything. I failed in the venture that I was trying to do. So no, this is not something that I could depend on. How could I have confidence in it? You know what I'm saying? So, but her clean look at it, she knew I was good at it. I was dedicated to it. And she liked what I was doing enough to tell me to invest in myself. So without her, without that moment, I would still be back in the hustle. So, when sometimes those key moments happen in your life and you just embrace it and just glad that they happen.
Yeah. What's your like when you were like a father, husband, artist, laid off? Like you were laid off, you had your art practice still doing that. Then you have laid off, you have a wife, you have kids, like where's your like what are your self-care tips in a situation like this? It feels like it would make me go crazy.
That's the funny thing. The art is my self care,
Ah,
right? Is that
uh-huh.
that's what I do. Like, ever since, a little kid, you do some drawing. Like I draw when I'm happy, I draw when I'm sad, I draw when I'm stressed out, I draw when I'm, bored. I draw all the time. And so that's always been my relationship to art. So I needed the art and just to be able to do it. So the fact that I could try to make it my life's goal. I mean, it was a lot of stress during that time, but if you have I was so lucky to have my wife as a partner, and she was super understanding, appreciated what I was doing, and believed in me. So, like, I stayed home. I kept the kids. Like my son was, it was just before he went to pre-K. So for like a year and a half, I was home with him every day, and I cooked and cleaned. I kept up the house, and when he was asleep, I did my artwork. And then when she came home, she took over the kids, and then I would stay up late at night and do my artwork. And so I made it happen. It's that type of thing. Like it's this thing gonna work or it's not gonna work. You know, and I put it all on the line. If she believed in me, I will believe in myself. That's what I said.
Yeah, there seems to be like this thing. I was talking to a girlfriend. I can't remember what they call it in relationships where the like this whole like idea like the breadwinner like it flip flops. It goes between like the partners. I don't know if she
Oh yeah,
called it like pancake. Is it called like pancake relationship something?
I don't know
But
about
she
that.
was talking about how successful.
Pancake.
Yeah, I feel like it had that kind of a name like that. Like you flip stuff about it like being like more successful marriage thing. And I bring this up because of how you talk about like these relationship shows you hear, like I'm interested in relationships. And then, like people, especially black people are like, nah, the man needs to do this. You need to do that. And women like, well, you need to do this. You need to do this. And it's like, no, like really like if you like almost take turns, like her husband's in school. So then she's helping, and then she's like, eventually he will be out of school and I can't wait because then
Yeah,
I will be able to do
exactly.
this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it doesn't.
So
I forget I don't know what the name of that is either. But that's what you're describing is like life. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. That's what I don't like about those things, that it don't consider like me and my wife have a life together. It ain't just like she doing something and I'm doing something. Like we've been married. This is next month is 17 years. I've known her for over half my life. Like we have a life together. We live in this thing like every single day for 17 years. Like you can't imagine like the back and forth that we've had. Like when she was in school to get her PhD, I was working and paying for everything. And when I got laid off, she was working for paying everything. And then I went to get my master's. And then I started being a little bit more successful in my artwork. And so like it just happens. It goes back and forth. But like the kind of the commitment and the love is always at the center of it. That's why I talk about her so much. That
Yeah.
like I said, like it's who I am. Like, you know, you don't really know me until you see me with my wife. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. She should have like an ebook.
Yeah.
Is your partner an artist? Question mark. Join me. She can
Workshop.
have like Excel sheets, like budgeting templates, like conversation groups.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. That's good. That's a good side hustle.
Yeah, I would sign up immediately. I would sign up immediately because I'm always curious. And I feel like, as you were talking about in your conversations, it's like important to be honest. I love that too. And I'm always interested in that too because there's so many artists I meet who you're like, wow, how do they have all this? How are they able to do this like whole practice like this? They have like this whole yacht, like this whole like park as their studio. And then you like find out that like they're married to Janet Jackson or something. You're like, oh, now this makes sense. But they don't speak about it. They're like, oh, they don't mention these types of things. And so now you're like sitting there wondering, just like, how come my life's not like that? And not that you want to compare, but you're like trying to just find resources, like, okay, if I see you with a park as a studio, I want one too, because that would work for me. But, people are like, oh, I don't know. But the truth is, so I think truth is important as far as like knowledge sharing amongst other artists or amongst like whatever your industry would be in, but in ours, for sure, in art.
Well, even artists are people can be myopic, right? Where especially if you ask them a question about work, they think everything is about work. They don't think about the setup that allowed the work to happen. Like my wife being here with the kids when I'm out doing being a visiting artist somewhere. Like that's important because if it didn't, I would either have to bring my kids or I couldn't do it. Like it's that type of stuff. So it's very easy to forget or separate like work, art, making art, doing all this stuff and what you think about all the time from life. And then life is more of a partnership than we think it is. You know what I'm saying? Then we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, that's deep. We don't talk about it enough.
No, we don't.
It
Yeah.
does seem very individualized. It's very like a lot of individualism. I think is the thing, and yeah, and it seems like to be a successful artist, you need to have a partner.
Hey, that's the American
It helps.
exceptionalism. Capitalism tells you that you did it yourself, right? That you like everything you made all your money all on your own. Nobody ever helped you. You did it like absolutely with no help. And guaranteed, if you look at anybody's story, somebody helped them along the way. Something helped you like get where you are. And people just don't know to talk about it or they don't want to talk about it. Like that happens a lot.
Yeah. So, what is one year? Do you have like a series of artworks that's your favorite?
That's my favorite. Not necessarily a series because I think because my art is so fundamentally about me, then all of it is talking about different things. And I got a little bit of ADHD where I don't like doing the same thing over and over. So a lot of my series they continue, but they continue like I'll do like my Black Love series is probably my longest running series, and that's changed a lot over the years. But I'll do a Black Love piece like every other piece will be like a Black Love piece. Does that make sense? Like I wouldn't do it constantly straight. Do like I wouldn't make Black Love pieces for like 2 months straight. I would get bored. Like I like as much as I love it, I would never have the brain width to do it because I want to do other stuff. I want to experiment and have fun and you know, never forget about that joy, that part of discovery, like in artwork. And so my series are different like that. So I might do like a bunch of different paintings, but I also be working on prints at the same time. And so everything's ongoing. Like everything's always like one big mess. And then every once in a while I stop and pick up like 10 things and do a show or something like that. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Do you like exhibiting your work, having shows?
I
Or
love
you like, do you do art fairs, or what's your jam there?
I don't do art fairs, but after I did my first solo show, Bright Black, I fell in love with the idea that I could control it. I'm giving you a full when you walk into the room, everything in here is how I set it up. That's what I like. I like that because I feel like I got a lot to say. And especially when we talk about like a singular topic, every piece in the show is worked out to be supportive of the overall idea. And so I like that sense of accomplishment. When I did the 400 show, there was a big collaborative show talk about the history of Black people, like the whole process of it. It took me a year, and I collaborated with like 24 different artists, and we made like 36 pieces like over that year, like the process of it. So when you present it, I'm presenting you this thing that I labored over and put together, and I think it's perfect. And so I like that part of it. So I would much rather do a show like that than do like a lot of group shows. I don't do a lot of group shows. I really pull back from that. Early in my career, it was kind of like wherever you can show work. And I tell people this all the time: wherever you can show work early in your career, show it. It don't matter where it is. In a coffee shop, is 30 people in the show. It don't matter. But now, I think my ideas and my work is strong enough that I don't want so many people in the show, unless it's like some big invitational thing with a lot of great artists in it. But other than that, I don't like to have my work diluted, my idea diluted. Like I want it all to be like presented the way I want it to. So I get a good kick out of that now.
Yeah. Have you ever curated a show?
Oh yeah, I curate all the time. Curate all
You
the time.
curate all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I curated, and I'm curating, do a lot of curation, a lot of jewelry stuff, especially since I've been a teacher. 'Cause I think that, once people see you as a teacher, they kind of respect, oh, this guy is always opinionated. he does a he does a lot of talking to other people and stuff like that. Like, so I do a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think they also seen like the 400 show that basically is a solo show, but it's a big collaborative show. But it's basically me curating, like picking people and working work and how it was positioned on the wall and stuff like that. So
Got you.
so I do a lot of that stuff lately.
Do you consider your podcast Studio Noise a curation project?
It, you know what? When I think about it, it definitely is. It
Yeah.
definitely is because people ask me that all the time. Like, how do I get on Studio Noise? It's kind of like I just have to want you on the show. I guess it's all a one man production, so ain't like it's no there's no official processes going through. It's kind of like, hey, who do I want to talk to? And it's like, oh, I send them a message. If they can do it, they can do it. If they can't, they can't. Like it's fine. Like I've been, remember what they say? My dad used to say, I've been kicked out of better places than this, like that kind of thing. Like I got to talk to you, but I if I feel like somebody has something to say and I can connect with them, that's when they can make it on the show. You know what I'm saying? And it's different levels for that, for like what piques my interest and what doesn't. So yeah, that is a good curation. I think it's a pretty good curation too, like over time. Like I've talked to a lot of like great people on the show.
Yeah, you have. And I think podcasting is, even though I enjoy it, it's hard, especially by yourself. I think it's a hard medium to do. So I'm like really impressed by like the consistency and the quality and the guests. I'm always like, yeah, like, and I think sometimes, a lot of times with these podcasts, there's also another podcast I listen to called The Conversation. And I like, my podcast is called noseyAF, but Michael Shaw, I always tell him he's the one who's nosy, because he'll like talk to a collector and they're like, and this curator like totally dropped the ball on getting us a piece. And he's like, oh yeah, who was it? He just like comes out the big with it. He's always trying to get names and stuff. And it just, I don't know if he realizes it, but it just really makes me laugh the whole time. And they're like, yeah, I had to drop an artist, like a gallerist to say how she had to drop an artist. She's like, who'd you have to drop? Just like, wait, it's so funny. But yeah, no, I think it's cool. How did you decide to start a podcast?
It was random. I was with my girl Jazz, Vicky Jazz. She was my co-host for the first 100 episodes.
Okay.
And we were sitting around talking. It was like, yo, we should start a podcast. And we're just like, oh yeah, who we gonna talk to? I was like, oh, we'll talk to Shaniqua. The Shaniqua Gay was our first episode, and so I started recording that the day that I moved into my studio in grad school. The very first thing I moved into the studio, I recorded the first episode, and I don't know, it's just been going since then. And for some reason, I fell in love with it because I like the conversation. I like sharing information. I like highlighting my friends and people that I want to talk to and like get stuff out of it. So I think it's fun. It's the one thing that I do that is actually just for fun. Like everything else has a purpose. Like either I gotta, take care of these kids or make this art to sell it or like something. Like everything has some attached. But I don't have to do the podcast. Like if I stop doing it right now, who's gonna be hurt? Nobody. Like I mean, people might be disappointed. Like if I stop doing it, but like there's no other force that's keeping me doing it other than I want to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What I also like about your show is with you being based in Atlanta, it's really put Atlanta, even though I knew it was like a cultural center, I think it's like, if I would go to Atlanta, it's like, oh, I can go more places than just the museum. Like I know like other folks to look out for and other things to do culture wise in Atlanta. And I think that is really cool. And it even just goes back to like me getting upset when I don't see artists with interviews. I was like Googling my friends to see like if they've done anything. Cause, like also another thing like with artists is that we'll just be doing our thing. It might not necessarily take time to celebrate stuff you're doing. So people just will be a part of conversations, panels, all this stuff that's being video and won't tell anybody. So then it's like, why did I do a Google search and find out that you were talking to,
Yeah.
the local news?
I'm
Like
good for
what?
that. I'm super good for that because I haven't even changed my website to show that I was on a TV show. so, so, I have to, so
That's
I'm real good
crazy.
for that. I don't know. It depends on like, especially me and my art projects. I always focus on the art. Like so, the other stuff that I just happen to get to do, like that stuff is cool. But look at these prints, though. That's what That's what I'm. That's how I get into it. That's how I justify it anyway. But I mean, it's the same way. So if you listen to the show, a lot of it is the listener, going through kind of the art world with me because I'm kind of just sharing like all the stuff that I get into. Like when I was on a TV show, oh, you get to hear from artists on a TV show. When I went to do this thing out somewhere, I'm talking to people out there. Like you get to like get this connection to people that I meet along the way that I think are interesting. And I think those conversations are like genuine and from my position that I really want to know what these people are doing. Like I think these people are interesting. So you should listen to them. I got some episodes coming up now with my girl Charity. And Charity's been doing awesome. Like she's been doing murals all around Atlanta and tattooing and doing all the stuff. Like that stuff is cool. I think it'd be awesome to talk to her and like hear her experience because everybody's not experiencing the same art world. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's like doing something like a little bit different, but they're making it work somehow. And so this is really important that a listener listen to the podcast and know there's no one way to be an artist. Like there's a 100 different ways, a million different ways. And you just got to pick what works for you and what works with your skill set. Because some people just aren't fast enough to make a certain amount of work that Charlie makes. And some people may not, draw good enough. So maybe they got to do other stuff. It's all kinds of ways to do this thing.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the show that you were on a TV show because that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. With you were on MTV's and the Smithsonian Channel. They did it together, right? The show, The Exhibit. So now not only are you a husband, father, artist, podcaster, you're now a reality star.
And a teacher, yeah. And a teacher, all the things.
And a teacher. Wow.
I do it all, yes.
Did you like being on a reality show?
It was interesting. It was interesting. I thought it was cool. I watch a lot of reality TV, so I was
Which ones do you watch?
man, I watch them all. I watch a lot of relationship shows like Married at First Sight, 90 Day Fiancé. I would watch all kinds of stuff. Just
Yes.
random, the most random stuff you could possibly think of. Talking to me about it. Well, it's like Naked and Afraid. I watch I watch all kinds of stuff. Like
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's interesting to like to be one to be chosen to go on the show because like even when they invited me, I was like, I'm a printmaker, right? Like like this is the only interesting thing about me is this is that I make prints. Like, you sure you want me on your show? But like, I don't know. It turned out to be great, and you just got to have the right attitude about it. Like, like I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it, but when I show up, I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna be Jamal and make art on camera. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Make art on camera.
Yeah. The thing about the show I think that was fun is that, it allowed us to see like everyone's just their bodies of work and their experiences as an artist versus making it a competition, like it was just, even though there was a competitive piece to it, it was like happy competition. It wasn't like, like nothing like cutthroat. Nobody was like talking bad about anyone or, anything like that, at least on the show. So I'm like, wow, this seems like, this is a good way to do this.
I thought it was great too. I think it ended up being great. Like especially like the presentation, they put a lot of shine on it. Like by the time y'all saw the episodes, like it didn't necessarily feel like that when you were shooting it, but it came out great. It came out amazing. I really liked it. I think it's one of the best art shows that I've seen. I like the idea and the premise that you don't get kicked off because I told them from the beginning, if it's sculpture week, you might as well send Jamal home now. Like, go ahead and fill that in because I don't do that stuff. Like I do, like I make this kind of work. But everybody was able to do their thing, and you got to see it all. And they picked who they wanted to pick. Like I thought it was great,
Yeah.
and it's especially with the energy because I approached it the same way I approach working in the studio, like with other people. Is that when you work in a community printmaking shop, is one press, right? And everybody's coming to use the same press. So you have to have collaboration and talk to people and kind of express. And we're in the same space and we're all making stuff. So it's, a lot of conversation and friendliness because we're all here for the same purpose. We're here to make art and share kind of this space that we couldn't do on our own. So that's how I approach everything that I do with that kind of community mindset. I want to know what you're working on. Like if you're in a print shop, you're making wedding invitations, I'm making fine art prints. Hey, how are you doing what you're doing? Like what's inspiring you? Why are you doing it? What is this for? Like how are you doing that? Like that kind of, I think you see it on the show, me going around talking to people like a lot because I'm interested in what they're doing. I want to know like, wow, like you're making a giant dolphin. Like that's crazy. Like a giant banana, like Misha, like this John is crazy. But they made it's a lot of interesting stuff, and I think artists are fascinating, just individually. So
Absolutely. And I was curious if you all still, because everybody's work was so different, I wondered if you all still kept in touch.
yeah, I talked to Jennifer the most, Jennifer Warren, painter in
Okay.
Chicago. I talked to her the most.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
talked to Basira a few times. I've seen like Misha since the show. So yeah, so we keep in touch. I try to keep in touch, as much as you can meet some strangers, spend a month with them, and then go back to your regular life. However much you can keep up with people, but it's it's still like I'll speak for myself. I have an admiration for what they do, like all of them, and just getting to know them and seeing what they make and how they make it. I think it was a great time, so I loved it. So I'll speak for myself.
Yeah. I loved it too. And I mean, the show is over, but I don't know. Can you still see it?
I think so. I think it's gonna be on Paramount Plus soon.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Well, the last thing I have for you is I know like I've like done like these like highlights of like your life through our conversation kind of thing, but I know that you sell a lot of your work and I've actually was asking Najee this question. It's something that I just ask all artists that sell their work, it seems, because I'm just curious their point. But art collectors, you talk to art collectors on your show, which I love. I think that anyone like, you guys should check out Studio Noise anyway. But speaking of art collectors, and some gallerists view art collectors, the name art collector is just sort of like a customer, is like another fancy way to say customer or client. And I wondered your thought on that. Like, is an art collector just a fancy name for a customer to you?
They can be. They can be. And I think a lot of that depends on the collector and it depends on the gallerist. And it depends on you as an artist. Like into how open are you willing to be with this person? Like a lot of the people that's been on the show, they're collectors. They may or may not have my work. Most of them do. That's just because I just encounter people and they just happen to end up with my work somehow. And and it depends on like the person and how you relate to them. If this is the type of person you want to hang out with, like what kind of relationship do they want with the artist? Because some people that are collecting art want to have an interaction with the person. They want to get to know your family and have you over to dinner and talk to you more, come to your studio and see like. And you as an artist, how open are you to that? To having people in your space and sharing that much and showing them. But you can also treat it as a business if you want to. But I think it's all like personal preference. I don't think it's no wrong way to do it because ultimately everybody in that kind of relationship is in it for something. Like collectors are looking for artwork. So how can I get it? How can I be the person at the top of Jamal's list? Like maybe if I bring him some wine, he'll put me first in line for some pieces. Or maybe they're just like, hey, Jamal's a cool guy. Like I bought some of his work. I love hearing him talk. And then we talk some more and now we become friends. Like I think and a lot of in life that you just have to be open to what's being presented to you and take advantage of it. Even like in terms of artwork and people especially that I mean a lot of artists, like some of the artists I talk to on the show might be the first and only time I talk to them. But other people, I might become friends with them and see them and shoot text messages back and forth. Like it's whatever. And so I'm open to all of it personally. And I think you can get a lot of enjoyment out of having friends that also collect your work because it can change. It changes over time, especially if you work for a long time. That relationship is going to change because I've changed and made it so much, and we get to see these people. I don't know how you can see somebody at a show that you're doing over the course of 10 years and you not know their name, know their mama, like know they, went through some stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you not connect with people? I'm just a friendly person. So like, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it actually makes me think of like my relationship with hairstylists. Like there is like the lady who braids my hair. I just go get my hair braided and I just come back home. Like when she was pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, congratulations. But I'm pretty sure she probably has clients who she sent pictures of her new baby too, like, oh, the baby's here. But then I have other hairstylists who's like, oh yeah, like we're going out this weekend to celebrate her 40th birthday, and I'm sure she has people who like, they just come in, she does the hair and they leave, so you're right. Like I'm glad you said that. It's like about more so about the relationships and you can play it how you want. And I think that that's sort of a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And everything has seasons too, where it's like these persons might not necessarily be your family, but they are like in a way supporting you. And I know for sure I've seen it come and go, right? Like all of the years I've been a full-time artist, it ain't all been easy. So like I appreciate like every dollar somebody gives me, whether I'm selling like a $40 poster or like a $10,000 painting, like whatever it is, I appreciate every single dollar because I know how much people work for their money, right? Because I know how
I know
hard I
that's
work for my
right.
money. And so like, you giving it to me like helps me like keep doing this thing. This thing is not it's not an easy thing, this life that we chose to have to make this stuff that possibly nobody wants. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
I actually do want it. Like I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I can't tell you. So I'm willing to reach out to you, tell you happy birthday. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, that's the least.
uh,
That's simple.
yeah, it's simple, yo. And like, most of life, if you're just a nice, genuine person, you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for talking to me.
Hey, no problem, yo. This has been fun.
Yeah, I really, really
What it
appreciate
feels
it.
like to be on podcast and not be the host. I love it.
Thank you so much for tuning into the noseyAF podcast with me, your host, your friend, Stephanie Graham. I'm so glad that you made it to the end of this conversation. Please kindly let me know what you thought by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening right now. You can also connect with me at noseyAF.com via the Say Hello button. And if you're curious about what's going on in my art and film life, please visit my website at missgraham.com. Oh, and also, if there is someone that you're nosy about and you want me to have them on the show, please send suggestions via the same hello button and I will check them out. Until next time, thank you so much for being you and see you soon. Peace.